Thanks for making the Locked On Ole Miss podcast your first listen every day. We're free and available wherever you get your podcast, including YouTube. We're part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every single day. Hello, I'm Stephen Willis from the Locked On Ole Miss podcast. I'm joined by David Eckert from the Clarion Ledger. We're going to be talking about practice. We're going to be doing our practice report video whenever nobody actually got to see practice on Thursday. But David saw it on Tuesday, and he talked to the three players. So how you doing, David?
I'm doing good, Stephen. I'm doing good. I saw zero practice today.
No practice whatsoever.
Actually, I saw about 5 seconds of it when I was walking by the fence. So,
okay,
highly illegal.
Let's break that down.
Yeah. The music was good.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, that's kind of the case with college football practices all over now. The music's always pretty good, right?
Yeah, strong music. Strong. They seem to have updated the playlist. I wasn't there for long enough to confirm this, but last year they just played like the same 15 songs, and I think I heard a new one today. So I'll have to double check that. But that's the major news from today, in my opinion.
Whenever I worked at Ole Miss, I got there when David Cutcliffe, his last year in 2004.
Okay.
And he had his playlist. They had all the fight songs with the crowd noise. There was no listening to music during the game, but occasionally when they're doing crowd noise, you would have like Three Dog Night. You'd have those same songs. I was like, okay. And they went over through Ed Orgeron at Ole Miss. And I am almost willing to bet that they made it all the way up until Hugh Freeze.
I hope that they did. That would make for some great lore.
Yeah. So pretty interesting stuff. Now, what did you notice? We'll talk about Tuesday because you actually did get to see a little bit of practice Tuesday. What stood out to you?
Yeah, honestly, Stephen, I just spent that time like frantically trying to figure out who was and wasn't there because we got about 15 minutes Tuesday. Mm-hmm. So, Juice Wells wasn't there. Diego Pounds, guys that Kiffin talked about on Tuesday. Mm-hmm. I didn't see Ulysses Bentley either. So that's really the main thing. It's tough with just. I have mixed thoughts on being let in for that short of a time because it's like, all right, for example, Centurion Perkins was taking reps at defensive line or a defensive end, right? And it's like, okay, does that matter, or is he just doing drills there when I happen to be watching? You know what I mean? So it's tough. And even with absences, it's like, all right, is player X hurt, or did he just have some bad tacos last night and is using the restroom right now? So I don't know. I have a hard time with it, but that's
my whole thing that I'm doing with practice right now is nothing big picture matters and nothing really injury matters in spring, because if they have a bump, they're not going to practice.
Sure.
But players like Kedrick Reesano, players like Aiden Williams, Caden Lee,
sure,
I think spring's important for them. Somebody like Suntaran Perkins, that it's important for him. And that's the stuff that I'm paying attention. Like Ole Miss let out a video of practice afterwards. Well, part of that was TJ Dudley and Suntaran Perkins talking to Pete Golding and what looked to be a linebackers around him. So it looked to me like Suntaran Perkins is getting reps in both areas. So maybe he's doing like a jack type thing.
Maybe that would be consistent with what I think I asked Golden about this at the Peach Bowl. And basically, his response then was, we expect to kind of move him around, and because really they didn't move him around that much last year. It was mostly edge, defensive end, whatever you want to call it, if you look at the snap counts. So maybe we start to see that versatility come in a little bit. I think kind of looking at the depth chart, they almost have to if they don't go get somebody. There's not a whole lot of options there. So I would be surprised if he doesn't play at least a little linebacker, or at least a little more than we saw last year. But who knows? It's there's another transfer portal window between now and then. So lots of moving parts still.
Yeah, it's one of those things I tell people all the time. When you look at, I love spring football. I'm one of those crazy people that loves spring football. There's something about the weather getting warmer as it goes on, as opposed to doing the opposite. I just like it. By the time it ends, it feels like you're in summer. And what I've learned from being inside the Manning Center and all of that is it's basically the individual drills are the most important part. Now they're doing some install stuff and things like that, but it's trying to figure out who you can count on.
Right.
Like Jordan Watkins in practice today said that Noreel White is the guy that's impressing him.
Yeah.
And Noreel White's not going to play wide receiver this fall, but Noreel White's going to go a long way with Aiden Williams and Caden Lee to determine who the next quarterback is at Ole Miss, whether it's Walker Howard or Austin Simmons. Mm-hmm. So him coming in and getting his feet under him, that's probably a good thing, because now they're doing a little bit of load management. I hate that term, but they're doing that on Austin Simmons on his arm. And Walker Howard, you just don't hear much about Walker Howard for whatever reason. But with Jackson Dart, what he has about him. But I call this spring a Cold War in the Ole Miss quarterback competition for 2025, because it's not hot right now. There's nothing that can be won right now. But how you do in this Cold War is going to determine who the next quarterback is for Ole Miss.
Yeah, definitely. For sure. I wonder, it's probably a little bit of an indictment on us that we don't ask about Walker that often. But I don't know. I think Austin Simmons is kind of just like, for lack of a better phrase, this shiny object that everybody
magnetic.
wants to
He's magnetic.
Yeah, for sure. And now he's playing baseball and he's throwing 94, and it's, so
per his dad, he can throw 98 if he throws a four-seamer.
Really? Wow. Wow. I tell you, I was not expecting that, Steven. I went to a baseball scrimmage this spring. I was like, what? That can't be real. I mean, the breaking stuff is disgusting too. I was like, that's not fair. Save some athleticism for somebody else, man. That's just...
Somebody asked, is like, is he going to play football or play baseball? And I was like, the wild card is he's throwing 95 from the left-handed side.
Yeah, man. Yeah. I mean, there's guys that get drafted based off of that alone, Like, you don't have to have anything else. If that's what the radar gun says and you are left-handed, you belong in a major league organization. So, yeah.
You're playing, if he wanted to, well, I guess not now since he went to college, but by the time he was eligible to do it, his first year, he might be at spring breakout whatever team takes him. He's probably pitching in the big spring training location his first year. I mean,
yeah, I'm with you. He's special athlete for sure.
And he's special throwing the football too.
He is. We haven't seen that one as much.
Yeah.
But
he's Tua with 4 more inches.
Uh-huh. Yeah. Is he that much taller than Tua? I didn't realize that.
He's 6'4".
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Tua's a little short, huh?
Yeah, he's about 6 even.
Yeah. All right.
Hey, I guess according to the roster, he's probably 6'2".
Right.
Kind of like Kyler Murray's 5'10".
Sure. Yeah. And he's definitely not playing Call of Duty either.
Yeah, Kyler Murray is the Super Mario character before he eats the mushroom.
Does he get the sound effect too?
Yeah, I hope so. That would be amazing. So today we had the interviews. We had JJ Pegues, we had Trey Washington, and Jordan Watkins. What kind of impressions happened today?
I'll tell you what, Steven, the most fun thing that happened today was them talking about the Madden rating, or the EA Sports college football rating that they want to see for themselves. Not a whole lot of serious football today. But I don't know.
JJ Pegues said 99, which means he's not playing.
Yeah, JJ, I got some bad news for you, buddy. I don't think you're Aaron Donald, but no, that was funny. I think he was just kidding, but
oh yeah, he was.
Yeah, but I don't know. Football wise, I guess there were a handful of questions about expectation. I guess haven't really talked to the players a whole lot. I think administratively, Ole Miss has been pretty open and like, hey, the goal is the college football playoff in 2024. The players probably were not as willing to say that definitively. So they kind of dodged those. And then talking about Pete Golding, it just sounds like everybody's a little bit more comfortable in year 2, which you would expect. There really wasn't a whole lot to mine, which you can probably tell because I didn't write anything from it. But really the Noreel White thing that you mentioned from Jordan Watkins, I think was probably the best little bit of insight that we got.
Yeah, he got a segment on my show tomorrow.
Wow.
For that little comment. Yeah, I'm impressed. I'm gonna have his high school highlights up, the whole 9 yards.
There you go.
Yeah,
you're always on the grind, Stephen. I respect
it. Definitely, man. My whole goal was, and everybody that's watching this video, if you want to know my secret sauce, I want to appear like I'm everywhere. I don't have to be everywhere. I just want to appear like I'm everywhere.
Oh, there's a Stephen Willis on my television.
Yeah.
I love it. Yeah. I don't know. Not a whole lot that we learned today, Stephen. I hate to disappoint you. Not a whole lot.
That's the reason to say practice report.
Sure. Air quotes.
Yeah.
This is Allen Iverson would approve of this practice discussion. I think this is the line with what he thinks.
It's pretty great. I do think it is a little bit early in the year to be having is this like playoffs? Because I heard that question on everyone. The playoffs or bust thing. The players are being told over and over again from the coaching staff that we're not even a finished product yet. We're just a good roster. We're not a good team. So I don't think mentally they're even there to where they're thinking about the playoffs if they're doing this correctly.
I don't think. Just with the coaching that they receive, Stephen, I don't think that's the type of. I'd be surprised if they ever said it, really. You know what I mean? Like they could be 11-0 in November, and it's just not something that they're taught is good to say, I think. So I guess that one kind of is what it is. But, I do think it's important to ask for the perspective, right? Whether or not they're willing to share it, that falls to them. But hey, if Jordan Watkins wants to say, if we're not 13-0 winning the SEC, like that's fine with me. Go right ahead. So
the funny thing is we can look back on this and let's say Ole Miss has a magical run and for whatever reason wins the national championship and they have a player on the field and he says, you all guys all thought we were going 6-6. And everybody's like, what are you talking about? And Steve for that.
Yeah. God, just like the brainwash of Kirby Smart and how he convinces all of his teams that everyone thinks they're terrible when they're filled with like 800 5-star prospects.
It's amazing.
It needs to be studied. It really does. We need to harness that for science because it's just incredible.
But the reactions I got from players, you could see that. That's the one thing I noticed when I heard it. It's like, it's not going to take much to turn that dial over to where all of a sudden Ole Miss is supposed to go 4-8 this year inside 100%. The building. Yeah.
It just takes one Feinbaum comment, Stephen. That's it.
Oh, just and that's coming. It's coming.
Probably.
Yeah. Probably. Yeah. It's absolutely amazing. I'm telling you, I enjoy. Everybody asked me, like you were talking about how, well, maybe you're getting too little access. Maybe it'd be better if you just didn't get any, the 10 minutes is just not right. But I enjoy the lack of access because it allows me to have a little bit of freedom in what I'm talking about. And I'm not rigidly on to what we're observing. Right. So I can kind of do some big picture stuff and meld it with the little bit of facts that I get. I've got parents all the time that like, they'll just shoot me a text message of what their kid did at practice or something. But you don't report on anything like that because it's a kid's parent, honestly.
Sure.
But it's a situation to where you get to have a little bit of freedom, a little bit of leeway. And I think this is a good situation for everybody covering Ole Miss football that wants to cover spring football, because there are people that don't want to cover spring football.
Yeah, it's one of those things because it's like, would you rather just kind of be unrestricted in what you're talking about or have the greater access? But like, a lot of times when that greater access comes, it comes with the understanding that like, hey, you won't discuss X, Y, Z,
Mm.
So it's kind of like, which one would you rather want? Um, to me, you know, being in my really still second year here, I usually prefer the second one just because, like, I haven't been here to see everything 500 times. Like, I would kind of rather see it for myself. But um, yeah, I don't know. Different horses for different courses.
Well, this is the change. Whenever I was working at Ole Miss with Coach Orgeron, I think it was in 2005. It was his first year. He got to Ole Miss and he's from the USC Pete Carroll School. All the practices were wide open because nobody in Los Angeles went to practice. Well, he tried to do that at Ole Miss and everybody showed up. And back in that time where the parking garage is now, that was another practice field and it had a little hill that people sat on.
Oh, okay. Oh, I'm sure that was a mess. Yeah.
Yeah. And that was also at the beginning of Twitter. Okay.
Disaster. Yeah.
And nobody understood. Nobody knew what happened. And a player went down and got injured. That automatically started popping up all over social media. And it became a headache for everybody. This was Coach Orgeron's response. My video team went out and bought camcorders to where we had 8 or 9 camcorders, and we hired students in for the practices that their only job was to videotape the fans.
uh, I tell you, it feels like everywhere I go, this is the third program I've covered now, kind of has like the practice observation story. At Southern Miss, they used to tell the one about, I forget which coach it was. It was one of their past coaches. It would just like see planes flying over the practice field and be like convinced that like Marshall was trying to get their like second team center, it's just, the paranoia is incredible. I love it so much. I hope it never stops because it's so, I guess in Orgeron's case, it probably was rational. In most cases, it's incredibly irrational.
No,
But
there was
college
not much
football is best
rational
when
about
it's irrational.
Orgeron.
Yeah. Fair enough. But I like college football when it's irrational, Stephen. It's getting too pragmatic. We're making too many fact-based decisions behind dollar signs. Let's just throw stuff at the wall. Let's have fun.
Well, you have a situation where there was a board of trustee member of North Carolina all of a sudden coming out against the ACC and yelling about North Carolina giving too much leeway to the ACC.
Oh,
And that was the thing that happened today. This is a situation. I honestly believe this. The alliance between the Big Ten and the Pac-12 and the ACC, that was a dang Trojan horse, man.
It maybe because nothing has come from that. Like they didn't even do like, hey, we're gonna play a non-conference weekend in basketball that nobody's gonna care about. Like there was nothing that came from that. Yeah, zero.
Yeah. Oh, it was a mess. And if North Carolina, if they decide to bail on the ACC, it's over.
Yeah.
At that point, Florida State and Clemson, we all kind of had an idea about. The next one, I am desperately interested in who the next school will be.
Yeah, I don't know. It's not going to stop until it's just, I don't know. I'm honestly, I'm exhausted by it. I'm just like, I think maybe like 5 years ago when this kind of thing would happen, we'd be like, oh, that's kind of interesting. It's kind of cool. But now it's just like, there's one every month. Can we get to a place where we just have like 5 minutes to breathe, please? But
well, I'm gonna put you on the spot real quick before we get out of here. Sure. So I apologize for this because you might not even have heard about this. Rashad Marshall going into the transfer portal.
Yeah, I saw those reports. I tried to confirm it myself. Haven't quite gotten there yet. It's pretty new, but yeah, I think reading the tea leaves probably expected. I mean, he barely played, especially in SEC play. So. I think if you're him, go ahead. Sorry.
What do you think the number of transfers coming in because that will give us probably an idea on the players that are going out, maybe.
I'd be surprised if it's not 4 or 5.
Mhm.
I mean, just based on, and this, nobody's told me this, but just based on what Beard kind of said, the way he responded to some of my questions in Nashville, like I really get the feeling that he's going to clear this thing out.
Yeah.
But
You always hear the jokes of like, he doesn't like his team. He doesn't like his team. And you're like, okay, that's just something people says. And it's like by the end of the year, it's like, yeah, he doesn't like the team.
he's telling you he doesn't like his team. You know, he's like, there's not enough passion. You know, we're not disciplined enough. Like that's coach code word for I don't like this team. So, you know,
Well, for him, it had to be aneurysm inducing because playing defense and rebounding, that's like 1 and 1A of his basketball. And this team couldn't do either one of them.
Yeah, and look, I think he has to wear that a little bit too, and maybe we have skipped that because he's got a great reputation basketball wise. But you know, like, hey, these you built this roster, right? Like, it's not like all 10 of the guys that are playing meaningful minutes are Kermit Davis's guys, right? He had a considerable influence on this roster, and it did not do the things that typical Chris Beard teams do. So, you know, obviously it's harder when you're just, hey, let's rapid fire transition this roster using the transfer portal. It's more difficult, but you know, I think maybe he didn't get the right balance of personalities when he built this thing.
Thanks again for making the Locked On Ole Miss podcast your first listen every day. We're free and available wherever you get your podcast, including YouTube. We're part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. David Eckert, what do you got going on at the Clarion Ledger this week?
I am ready tomorrow morning to get on a plane and go to South Bend. So we're gonna, we're gonna have some women's basketball coverage. We'll see how they do, and it's gonna be fun. So follow along. ClarionLedger.com. You can follow me, David Eckert98 on Twitter, and we'll have some women's hoops coverage for you. It should be fun this weekend.
Yeah, and if you look at it, I think Notre Dame was the school that almost got Caitlin Clark.
Yes. Did you? Yeah, the Wright Thompson story. Yep. So, you know, they could be playing Caitlin Clark if things had gone differently.
Well, if Caitlin Clark was there, there would be a 1 seed.
I'm sure. Yeah. Too many sliding doors.
Yeah. So anyway, thank you, buddy. And I'll talk to you later, man.
Sounds good. Thanks, Steven.
All right.